we have a lot of food still in the garden, so we're digging up some potatoes, so you're coming along for the ride.
Today we're hoping to get 3 varieties of potatoes out of the ground. I'm standing in the middle of our 2 rows of Yukon Gold. We've already harvested some that we tried in hills and it didn't go very well, so we're really hoping this is a lot better. We also have our little redskin variety, which we've got 1 row uncovered and another row that's looking a little bit overrun. So I'm curious to see how they've done under all that weed pressure. And the last couple rows that are all a bit shorter are our russet potatoes. So we'll see how these all do.
First step really for us is getting these weeds out. As you saw in our garden tour, they are thick and they're everywhere. And I will admit, we've jumped ahead and I've actually picked quite a few already and cleared out some of these potato rows in anticipation of this harvest and feeding those to the rabbits. They love the weeds, but we're still not finished. So we're gonna just kind of show you where we're at. We're not going to bore you with the details. We're going to get all the rest of the weeds picked and then we're going for it.
So I should mention too, we actually have one other kind that's still in the ground, and that's part of our all blue potato harvest. That's not a priority today. They're going to probably stay where they are, and once things dry out a bit, we'll come back and tackle them. But we're a little concerned that these gardens, if they get sopping wet, they're going to stay that way.
So as I'm getting into this, pulling weeds out around our russet potatoes, I'm actually surprised because they're still green. They haven't fully died back. Don't get me wrong, some of them have, but it's interesting to see that under those weeds there was still some green vegetation on these. We're still pulling them out, but they were still alive.
So Yukon Golds, of course, are a pretty familiar variety of potato. They're a rather large potato with basically kind of that white or normal brown skin and nice yellow flesh. That's why we like growing them. They make really good things like mashed potatoes. Last year our harvest wasn't fantastic on these, so we're gonna see. It's looking like this might be a little more promising, but the in-ground, my theory is going to be here before we get this done, is the in-ground in the rows is probably going to be a lot more productive than our hills were.
So there is our first row all dug out. It looks a little skimpy, but to be honest, those are some big potatoes. As you can see, Chris is going to hold one up. So we're going to go down the other side and see what we can get out of the next row.
We planted 15 pounds of Yukon Golds, but that did include what we've already harvested from the hills. That being said, I can tell you right now, without even looking at weight, this was way more productive. One thing I noticed about the Yukon Golds in the last couple of years of growing them is they don't tend to produce a lot of potatoes sort of per seed potato. And I think it's because they are a determinant variety. So we tend to get a lot of fairly uniform, I'm going to say it, bigger potatoes, but they definitely, once they stop growing, they're done, and you don't get near the quantity of potatoes that we get from some of the other varieties. But with that, sometimes you get an awful lot of the little guys from the other kinds.
So potatoes is one area that Chris and I really differ on what our favorite potatoes are. He loves the all blue variety. I love my russet potatoes. There is just something about a russet potato for a good plate of fries that you can't beat. And I'm glad that we actually planted 5 rows. For some reason, I thought we only had done 3. We did 5. Granted, some of them are short, but when I was pulling those greens out, a few beautiful ones came out. So I'm super excited because these have always grown way too small for us. And we kept saying, if they don't start getting bigger, we're going to stop growing them. I think this might be the year that they listened.
So I've just started the row, and look at that one.
Oh my, now that is beautiful.
And one thing I'm noticing is they don't really have too much in the way of scab or anything. They're all looking quite good this year.
Look at that pile. That's just like one plant. Yay! Look, Dad, show the camera your excitement. Oh, did you not see that one? Show it. Oh, look at that.
Another decent one.
Hold it up closer. Make it look bigger. Ah, look at that. He just doesn't want my russet potatoes to do better than his blue potatoes. It's true. But I'll be honest, that's looking pretty good. That's looking like a lot of poundage, and you're not even through a row and a half.
Well, they're definitely better this year.
They are better this year, a lot better. Well, as Chris would say, that's two types of potatoes dug up. So that's our russet potatoes all dug up. To be honest, very pleasantly surprised with the size of these. Give me 1 second. Via the magic of cameras, I'm back with potatoes. So many of these russets are like this. This is amazing. We've never grown russets that have consistently been this size. Don't get me wrong, we've gotten 1 or 2 here or there, but this time they're pretty regular, and I think that's pretty darn good. So looks like russets are going to stay on the menu this year.
All right, so last type of potato for today, and I've got 4 rows. 2 of them are a little shorter, which is not a bad thing, because I'm going to say it, we've tried a lot of different methods, from growing potatoes in buckets, growing them in raised beds, growing them in hills, growing them in these rows like this, putting them kind of the roots out where they're kind of right on the surface. For our soil, we definitely find the most productive way is to put them in these rows like you've seen throughout this video. So we dig a trench, and then we place our seed potatoes, we mound soil over top of them, so it kind of creates a bit of a mound or a bit of a hill. And then ideally we do mulch them a bit, so it's a bit of a multiple approach, but that's the most productive way for us to grow potatoes, and it requires work twice a year, once at planting and once at harvest.
So right behind Chris's boot there, you can sort of see the one row, then the other row you can see the potatoes on it right in front of him there, and the third row in this little section is where all these volunteer tomatoes are. And if you look in there, you can see they are actually going to ripen, and they are white Thomasul, which we didn't get any to grow this year. So it would be really nice to give these a chance. I'm just not sure we can dig these potatoes up and not kill those tomatoes. You saw these red skin potatoes in the garden tour video just the other day. They were sticking up out of the ground. As you can see here, they're still sticking up out of the ground. It doesn't change, right? Hopefully, we won't have too many that have that green factor. See, if you look at that, you've got kind of that greenish tint on top, and when you slice into that potato, you're probably going to lose a big portion of it because the bit that was sticking out of the ground is discolored and not good for eating. So we're on the last row of our red-skinned potatoes, and look at that. That's definitely the biggest one we've pulled out yet. First scoop on this last row. It's gorgeous. These little ruby red gem potatoes are more commonly like that. Basically, that's what you'd see in the grocery store. They're sold as like a new potato. We tend to get a lot that come out around this size. Love that, but really love this, because these are a nice hard inside like a russet. So almost as good as a russet in my opinion. So these are very, very similar to the russet potato, except they are yellow inside instead of white. But that nice firm flesh that you would expect from a russet is the same as what you get in these guys, which is wonderful in my opinion for preserving as well as fresh eating. And also these are our longest storing potato. These little guys, doesn't even matter if they're this size, they will keep all the way till the next summer. Wonderful, wonderful potatoes. Hence why, even though I hate small potatoes, these guys stay in the roster. Well, we're done digging for today. I think both of our feet hurt, our back hurts. I have no idea how long we've been at this. We didn't even check the clock, but it's done. All 3 types are all dug up. We're going to leave them laying out here for a little bit and let them dry as much as we can. But as you can see from the clouds and the darkness rolling in, it is supposed to rain this afternoon. But boy, I am glad we got these out when we did, because this ground would have been so muddy and sucky. I mean, it already was slightly sticking to your boots, but not terrible. And a little bit of water would have made this not fun. So perfect timing to get these out of the ground. And now for the exciting part, gathering them up and weighing them to see just how many pounds we got. I'm going to hazard a guess. I'm going to say 230 pounds is in total. Although we still have some of the all blues in the ground. Might not be that yet, but I think if we tally up with those all blues, it'll be about 230 pounds. So we are back out in the garden, and we are starting to pack these potatoes up. They are still damp and wet and muddy, so they will need to be cured But we've got to get them out of here before this rain comes tonight. Potatoes are all gathered up and in the buckets. All in all, I'm going to retract my 230 pounds because I don't think there's 230 pounds here at all. It's not as impressive once we get it all in the buckets, but still an amazing amount of food. We still have to remove our seed potatoes from these because obviously we're not going to eat those. Those are safe for next year. But all in all, I think we will have a good winter, a lot of French fries, which I like. And the bonus is, it actually started the process of cleaning up the garden because we had to remove all those horrible weeds, which I really wanted them gone so we could get this tilled up and whatnot before winter. So we're well on the way for that. And we're going to finish this off with a bonus because we're going to yank out all this squash and gather that up too. So stay with us because we're going to see what we've got under all these squash plants too.
Squash. As we said earlier, this is the end of the end for our Canada crookneck squash. It's the last one to come out. And some of these are still green, but we're still going to pull them out. And if worse comes to worse, if they don't ripen, sort of sitting on the shelf, which sometimes they do, they will be chicken food. But at least they won't go to waste.
And our starving cat has arrived. Are you starving, Eb?
Well, and just like that, so ends squash season for 2023. It's done. I think we've got a few yellow crookneck squash that are only on the vine for seed to come off, but it's all been harvested. So if you've made it to this part of the video, something I think is really interesting is this Canada crookneck we planted in a manure pile in the middle of the garden that we'd collected over the winter before the garden season. And it's amazing when you look at it here how much it broke down and how much it fed those squash, which is phenomenal. Now we will take this pile, what's left of it, and once the rest of the garden's cleaned up and before we till everything in, we will spread this around so that it basically fertilizes everything. But basically, there you go. As you can kind of probably hear, you probably can't see it yet, it's starting to rain, so we are going to get the potatoes inside and continue the video there.
Well, in typical hickory croft fashion, we are a week later and still digging potatoes. Now, I will say that's not all on us. The weather this week has been rainy and horrible, and there just hasn't been a chance to really get the rest of our all blues out of the ground. But it's come to our attention now after clearing out the weeds here that we didn't have as much left as we thought. There is only a single row, and it does look like either we didn't plant it all or a lot of it died because of weed pressure. So it's not going to be a lot of poundage added to what we've already got going, but that's okay because wait till you see what's inside to be weighed. Finally, potato harvest is over, and look what's happened. The sun is out, we are sweating, we're feeling that 19 degrees today, although saying that, we're below zero tomorrow night, so it's going to change fast. So next step, getting the last of these potatoes in. We've weighed everything that's in the house, but we're not going to give it away just yet. But we still have to weigh these ones that we just harvested, and then we'll give you some grand totals.
So we are back in the house. We have everything weighed. So as a bit of a recap, we grew several kinds of potatoes this year. Violet Queen, which was our very first potato variety we took out, and that was totally new to us. So that's the only one where we actually bought seed potatoes from. We had Yukon Gold, russets, Ruby Red or Ruby Gem, we're not really sure which one it is, all reds and all blues. And outside of the all reds and the Violet Queens, we grew 15 pounds of seed potato that went into the ground. And then the all blues actually had a bit of a top up that we're not sure exactly how many. We had some extras we found in the basement and we put them in. So there was actually a little bit more than the 15 pounds.
I guess I get to be in charge of the fun bit of dishing out the numbers because, to be honest, it was verging on our best potato harvest ever, actually. I think we keep getting better every year, and I'm not sure if that's our soil improving or what that is, but hey, we'll take it. Drum roll, please. Here come the numbers. For the russets, we had a grand total of 48 3/4 pounds, which I honestly thought, as you saw in the video earlier, it was going to be more than that. There were some real big potatoes, but that's okay. Yukon Golds, we had 42 1/4 pounds. The red skinned were our big winner at 69 3/4 pounds. The all blues were 62 pounds, but keep in mind we did plant more seed potatoes of those. So still, the red skinned have come out on top as far as production based on how many seed potato pounds we actually put in the ground. Then we had the all reds, which were 32.5 pounds, and the Violet Queen were 10.5 pounds, but also keep in mind this was our first time growing those ones, and we only planted 3 pounds of seed potatoes, and they're a smaller type russet. Unfortunately, there's not too much of it in this video because we harvested them so early in the year and pretty much ate them all. So in total, that gives us a whopping 266 pounds for our potato harvest this year, which is awesome. And as a bonus tidbit, because we did also finish up harvesting our squash this year. So our Canada Crookneck, which you see on the shelf behind me, are storing winter squash basically. For 2023, we harvested 103 pounds of just that squash. So that does not include our green striped Kershaw squash, which we harvested earlier this year. We actually have a video on that harvest, which we'll link above. But that one was 93.5 pounds. So just between those two squashes alone, we have 200 pounds of squash as well going into storage for winter food. So I think we're pretty set. I don't think we're going to starve. So 266 pounds harvested of potatoes is nothing to be shy about. That's pretty awesome. But we have to remember, we do save all our own seed potatoes. So from that 266, 75 pounds is going back into the vault for next year so that we have the ability to produce all these potatoes again. But that still leaves us with close to 190 pounds, which is 19 bags of potatoes. That's almost 2 bags of potatoes a month. And we don't necessarily go through 2 bags every single month. So I think we have finally found the sweet spot of just how many potatoes we need to grow.